Hello back to another course, optional knowledge course on the introduction on fatigue. I will keep it simple and move into the topic. We talk about fatigue, the effects of fatigue for task completion. As you can already guess, it impairs the quality in which humans can perform a task and is so one of the negative effects if you trust in humans to complete a task instead of robots. We talk about microsleep events and what defines microsleep. We see what differs fatigue from distraction, and we also lose some words on fatigue as an illness. It is important to understand these concepts to bring the data from, for example, technology, which is keeping track of fatigue events and distraction events, to make this data into consensus and to bring the adequate reaction into the field. This is a very basic um, yeah, waterfall diagram. Only if a danger comes together with a human, it might come to the unsafe act. And fatigue actually contributes on many different levels of this waterfall. It can be that the human, him or herself, through, for example, bad sleep, already comes fatigued, and a danger is more likely to turn into an unsafe act because I cannot react as fast as a person that is non-fatigued. But it can also be a life situation that brings me into a status of fatigue and, for example, makes me react longer than usual um, because of this event. And it can even be that this results in an illness, so a long-term um, consequence of bad sleep, or very local, very specific in time, a harm. For example, the case of a microsleep when I collide with something in the vehicle's way. So it is important to keep myself alert, to keep myself fit, but even when I'm the most alert and most fit and non-fatigued person on the site, fatigue can still affect me because of other people's fatigue. So you can always be safe, but still be in danger because others act unsafe. That's life. Now let's look what the words are in the definition and why sleepiness is not the same as fatigue. Sleepiness, as it has the word sleep in it, is the active wish for sleep. So I know that I need to sleep. I say I am sleepy. It is sleep that is missing, and the body just yearns for going to bed. This is a self-awareness step. It is a condition-driven event. So, to put it in words, I know that I am in a condition that puts others and me at risk. So I am self-aware. Again, I'm intelligent. I know what happens and I know the consequence of my actions. If I don't react, I will endanger others and myself. This is sleepiness. Now let's see where's the difference to fatigue. Fatigue is actually process driven. So it is a consequence of my actions. I'm so-called brain drained. by doing an action over a certain amount of time, it will always trigger fatigue to strike. So I can say this work is fatiguing, but I cannot say this work is sleepiness driving. Maybe you can see what I'm trying to put into words. I hope so. So I have two different sentences here. If somebody says, I did not realize that I was actively operating anymore, it feels remote controlled. Would you say this is fatigue? Or would you say this is distraction? Or would you say this is sleepiness? Think about it. Is this action process driven or is this situation driven? And on the other hand, I just woke up in the incident happening. Is this fatigue or is it distraction or is it sleepiness? To solve it, in the second case, we can be sure it is fatigue because of the definitions that we will also cover moving on into the slides. But here, one of the basic concepts is that you don't feel fatigue in the ultimate consequence of a microsleep. It happens unconscious. In the first quote, this is a more difficult situation because maybe everybody had an event like this. Sometimes you operate and it becomes like an automatism. So you cannot even remember maybe the last 5 kilometers you traveled or time passing by. It can be fatigue. So you had a microsleep event, but nothing happened, and you're like puzzled to figure out where did the time go. But it can also be that you are so deep in a monotone task that you are distracted, your brain is thinking of other things, and so it is more difficult for this quote to actually call it fatigue. But what is always true is that fatigue is work-centered, and I should not come to work fatigued, so it should not be possible, because fatigue happens through work. Only if I have like a different task performed to perform prior to work, for example, a long travel to the job site. It can be that my body is already drained, but with the perfect concept of the employee that the worker wakes up and goes to work and is perfectly fine and is really happy to be there and spend the day there. This is then putting fatigue to the side, because so putting fatigue as not possible to come to work, already brain drained, so to say. Another important thing when talking about fatigue is the fact that it is recoverable. I can reverse fatigue into an alert state. Very simple to remember. Rest restores alertness. So by just giving my brain time to recover, I come back to a state and battle fatigue. When I am tired, this means that I for myself discovered the fatigue and I know that rest is necessary. If I come to the state overtired, then I know that I need to take actions, but I keep on going. This is one of these man up things, like don't have yourself so childish. Just keep going, and which is actually triggering the negative sides of fatigue. So If you're tired, you should never let it come to the point to become overtired. Sleepiness is not recoverable at work because it means you need to go to a state of deep sleep. And you should not do this at work actually. So a rest is defined by, let's say, 20 to maximum 30 minutes, and deep sleep is everything above that. Actually, you can be ill, so long time sick, if sleepiness becomes your common state. To overcome sleepiness, it is important to look outside the 8-hour shift or 10-hour shift or 12-hour shift or the roster you are working in to an outscope to really find the influences outside of work that make you sleepy. Again, fatigue happens at work. So you can cover fatigue. Sleepiness happens outside work. So it should not even be the employer's task to investigate. It must be something that the human itself must find and cover because it's very personal and private. One of the last definitions to cover here is microsleep, which is important to name, that there is, on the one hand side, not a minimum duration of a microsleep. So you cannot say you need to be asleep for at least 3 seconds. And there is no maximum duration. So even if you are in a microsleep for 20, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, there's basically no end that is saying, okay, after this it becomes a macrosleep or something. Microsleep just says the following things. You go into a rest mode that you have no conscious control over, that has no regenerative value for you. So after a microsleep, it doesn't mean that the next microsleep will take some time to strike again. It can happen right after again. It indicates that one becomes completely unresponsible to the environment signals, so sounds, visuals, anything to have situational awareness. A microsleep increases the time of closed eyes, so microsleeps happens with the eyes to a high percentage or completely closed, and I cannot really naturally work against it. If I come to a very fatigued state, the microsleep happens unwanted, and I cannot even act against it anymore. So the microsleep is the ultimate result of fatigue. Last slide. Let's look at the opposite of fatigue, which is called vigilance, or easier to grasp, alertness. So fatigue is the absence of alertness. Alertness is the absence of fatigue. We can also call it like operate ability, or out of the context of operating heavy mining machinery, it is the ability to grasp risks around me. When we go back in time a little bit, these risks were not connected with my employment situation and other mining vehicles or other dangers or in the environment, but very simply other animals that had a risk of killing humans. I put the example of a bear. There are 3 basic situations that cause alertness to be impaired, which is the boredom, so the underuse of my intelligence power, and monotone work. Everybody can imagine that. If I have my duty on looking out for bears, but every night nothing happens, it brings me to a state of boredom and underuse of my capabilities that brings me closer to a state that it's more likely to decrease my alertness. On the other hand, overuse and pressure, lack of rest, can use to the decrease of alertness. If I had to have a long walk during the day, or I'm put under pressure by very high demands, this can also cause my alertness to drop. And finally, the time of day and lack of sleep. So if I need to operate on guard duty during times where the human brain is usually in shut-off, in sleep mode, or if I already lack on sleep, again, sleepiness can decrease alertness as well. And also be sure that it can be also an overlap of these three things. It is very difficult to overlap number 1 and 2, but of course it can be monotone and I'm sleepy, or I can have a lack of rest during a time of day when my brain wants to recover. That is having like double effects of reduced alertness. So what's the outcome? I expect that everybody knows the difference between fatigue, sleepiness, and also can be aware of alertness as a concept. Thanks for listening. Questions can be shot in the comment section. Bye.